Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to today's Business Spotlight. I'm your host, Todd Rodden. I'm a certified business and executive coach. I own Aspire Action Coach based here in Southwest Ohio. We're thrilled to have you join us today on the Spotlight series. You're going to love this conversation today with Ryan Fogelman, a self-proclaimed pure capitalist, and he's going to walk you through how he is living that out as a serial entrepreneur here in the region, not only growing his own businesses, but really impacting countless other small businesses here in the region. So if you're new to the series, we encourage you to hit that subscribe button so you can receive future messages like you're going to hear from Ryan Fogelman today. So without further ado, Ryan, welcome to the Business
Yes.
Spotlight. We're thrilled to have you. Tell us a little bit more about the various ventures you have. Very impressive list.
Oh man, Todd, I failed a lot for a long period of time. So again, you said it, I am a serial entrepreneur. I am a pure capitalist, right? Again, I don't care if you're right or you're left. At the end of the day, what makes America great is that we are able to wake up every day and some of us are building businesses, some of us are working in businesses, some of us are doing everything we can. I truly believe that the invisible hand of capitalism is what drives every single thing that we do. My passion is helping small businesses and growing businesses. So really and I do it in Ohio, a lot in Ohio. So, I mean, fortunately, I've had some successes. I think, Fire Rover, like one of my buddies started it in Detroit 10 years ago, called me up and said, "Hey, Fogelman, come take a look at this thing." So we started Fire Rover, and at the same time, I was always working and hustling, and I had my own consulting company, and I had my own basically digital marketing agency where I like drove leads and I was basically an outsourced VP of business development. So I've always worked for a lot of different, organizations because it kept me on my toes and a lot of different, it kept me happy actually, right? So we built Cohatch, honestly, we didn't build it to have 50 locations. We built it to, really be the place that was convenient and local and allowed you to work where you love what you do, and stay healthy in neighborhoods where you lived. And that's really what we've been able to do. We now have, fast forward 10 years, we have over 1,000 nonprofit scholars, and I call them the profitable nonprofits. We have 500 for-profit scholars. But really, we're looking at the uber local businesses and associations that we help. So that's really my passion every day is helping that, and then also building my businesses that I'm involved in.
If you don't mind, maybe if you could go a little bit deeper, explain to the audience, some of the role Cohatch plays, how small businesses take advantage and leverage that as a service.
Yeah, and I think people like when they think of Cohatch, they think of co-working, right? And co-working is the last thing you should be thinking about when you're thinking of Cohatch, right? So, I mean, we are not WeWork. We are literally the exact opposite of anything WeWork is, right? WeWork is in urban areas downtown. Their customer is a landlord. I am in suburban areas in really cool spaces that we've rehabbed. Communities bring us in to help them activate spaces. So, if you think of incubators, right? They failed for a long period of time for various amount of reasons. What we've been able to do is be a for-profit business, and we've really proven to cities that that our model that includes co-working, but it also includes event spaces and restaurants, and a ton of different a ton of different type of activation, right? We have 9 different like ways to commercialize our business. So by doing that, and then also, with the mix of the nonprofits and for-profits that we put together, and how we drive activation, really that's the bread and butter of our business that people truly don't understand. And we are a for-profit business, but we are fortunate enough to be able to, drive a ton of impact. And when I say that, there's direct impact and there's indirect impact. Direct impact to me is a very Judeo-Christian impact. It's a donation. It's a 3%, 10%, it's a tithe. And again, it's great impact. Unbelievable. Most people, that's the type of impact they do. What we do differently is that we bring in folks and we allow them to be their best selves. And whether or not they're running their own business, whether or not they're working with an association, or whether they're part of a chamber of commerce, we don't compete with them. We actually put gasoline on what they do. So, we're really by us allowing and helping and being in a convenient area that's usually a pretty cool location. Most of my partners, their job is to really develop, find cool spaces, really make sure that the city's happy, deal with all the incentives. And really, my job is to show people how to use it and connect the dots. And that's really what I've been doing, with all my businesses within Cohatch. So like, people ask, how can you have two businesses? Well, it's because Fire Rover is my main gig every day, right? I'm teaching people how to put fires out. I'm teaching people, we have the first and only FM approved smart monitor in the world. So it's like I've been uber blessed to be able to do it myself. And again, I've had other failures and I've had other successes, just like every other, capitalist in the world, right? Who really gets up every day, entrepreneur, capitalist to me, kind of same thing, right? But, just I've been punched in the face so many times, but I'm 50 years old now. And, I teach a lot of people through them learning how to work like us, not by sitting down and training them, but by just allowing them the spaces that they can do engineered collision that they can build their businesses within.
If you could talk a little bit more about some of those services, so just so the audience has a good sense that you talked about some of the fire protection consulting and that, but who are kind of your target customers there and who might be listening?
Yeah. Well, with Fire Rover, I mean, our biggest customers are really the waste and recycling industry. So, if you follow me on LinkedIn or you follow my fire safety report, I have 12,000 folks on my LinkedIn fire safety report, my newsletter. Um, really and I write a report called the eighth is my latest one of the waste and recycling facility fires report. But, the reality is that lithium ion batteries, vapes, personal storage, personal electronics, right? Like, we throw them in the trash accidentally. The problem is that causes fires and it drops on the front lines of all my customers. We are in 10 of the top 10 waste and recycling companies. And again, when we started in the back of a scrap metal facility. I mean, I was the first full-time employee. And the guys who built it, a guy named Brad Gladstone, Pete Mary, and Jeremy Dusing. I was fortunate enough, I'd gone to high school with Brad. He really was the driver behind it. He was the entrepreneur that, put the money in and really came up with the idea. And again, he called me up one day and said, "Hey, come up here and look at what we built." And I'm in the middle of Detroit, across from the original Buddy's Pizza, which if you're from Detroit, it's like our iconic, it's the iconic pizza that now like Jets is basically similar, but it's like half deep dish. And and he showed me this. I was fascinated and in love, right? Like, so that was 2015. We had one site. We now have 850 facilities. We're across five different countries. We're about to get our sixth country. So we're in Australia, New Zealand, France, UK, Canada, and US. And I'm working on a couple deals in Mexico and a number of others. So, I mean, and most importantly, if you know what an FM certification, which a lot of people have no clue, but really we proved that our system worked in a scrap metal facility and in waste and recycling, and then we brought it into a laboratory, which, if you think about fire protection and innovation, it's a really difficult thing. I mean, we've been using sprinklers forever, right? That's just the main thing. It's water, 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 and that's the way the whole industry really is. So, we've really come up with a full solution that replaces your sprinkler system or enhances your sprinkler system with a frontline employee, which that protects a ton of firefighters and it also protects our waste and recycling infrastructure and also high hazards that we're doing a lot more of now. So that's been fun. I think during the same time in 2015, we started a gym called Mesh Fitness in Bridge Park in Dublin. And that was like the original Cohatch was a gym. So my partners, in that were like a guy named Matt Davis and Eric Furch, Terry Hagendorfer, and then Joel Elizabeth, and again, if you look at most of them, like what they do is really develop. So, we started working with cities once they realized that like, okay, our first facility was in Worthington. It was, it was the original building, and so like our office was actually on the original stage from like the 1800s. So there's still pictures of it. And Terry went in and Joel Elizabeth designed an amazing site, and Matt worked and made sure that the incentives were all correct and were in line. And like we bring over 10,000 people to Worthington through our various types of businesses in a year. So if you look at like walkable Main Street, the issue is that a lot of people in the old days were saying, let's do let's do antiquing, right? Well, antiquing's dying, and the day that your real estate company is can afford to be on the front floor, the problem is the real estate company gets 6 to 10 people a month. So you're really not driving traffic there, and you're not driving the restaurants, you're not driving all the other pieces. So the reality is that Thursday through Sunday, those main streets are busy because everybody who lives around there wants to go out, right? But during the week, they're really not. So what we really, hit on was, the how do you activate that space from a Monday through Friday? And then we started giving away, our spaces to nonprofits on weekends when it really didn't make a difference for us. Like, but what they had to do was, just tell us how much money they were making, from a donation perspective. And I mean, Matt and I walked in one day and there was a Wish event, like a Wish Woman event, where they had raised $14,000 on a Sunday afternoon doing wine and painting. And we're like, whoa, and that really, and then we also had the Worthington Farmers Market, where we gave them our first Boost Scholarship. So, again, when you look at the association wasn't doing well, right? Because you had the farmers market doing great and all the farmers and vendors were doing great, but you had the actual association that wasn't healthy because they weren't charging enough. So again, we really helped Anna Perini. And we put all these together, and like now, we have 40 locations, we have, a ton of different nonprofits, we have a ton of different for-profits, and then we also have farmers markets, right? Like the Westerville farmers markets in our Westerville location, which was the old armory building that was basically raccoon infested with, manure for 40 years and was doing nothing. So we were able to get it in there, take it over, really build it out, and now it's a pretty lively space. So, again, it really is like the development side of it's kind of the magic, and then the activation side is really it's really what I really focus on.
Okay, that's tremendous growth in multiple businesses. You talked with Fire Rover and with Cohatch. So you mentioned early on though, hey, you've had your share of failures as well. So I'm curious, maybe you can share with the audience a past challenge that you had that you and the team overcame, and what did you learn from that?
Yeah, I mean, so like there's a product called Stick Grip that I started in 15 that I was working with inventors, and I brought it over to a company called Prevol. And again, we did amazing, right? Like, I mean, like during the pandemic, we turned it into, I mean, I'm not even kidding when I tell you we had 1 billion views on TikTok. If you go to Stick Grip now and look at it, there's 1 billion views on TikTok, but it didn't take off, right? So at the end of the day, you might have 1 billion views, but if you can't convert that into sales, then it's really a failure, right? I ended up leaving 2 years ago, and it's one of those things. Was it a great experience? Yes. I was on HSN. I was able to learn how to, I mean, negotiate with Dick's. And I will tell you right now, Dick's, like they're the worst company to ever negotiate with. And I don't mean to talk bad about them, but, they don't want to help a products company, right? Like, they want the big guys who can come in and they basically steal a lot of ideas. So as an entrepreneur, one of the things that I've always been is like, how do you protect the inventor and the entrepreneur? And, again, sometimes you're set up to fail and you think that you're not supposed to. So, the original inventors, they had gotten into, a really big company and it was great. They're like, oh, we got into, this big distributor. But then what they didn't realize is that it cost them 150 grand to actually set up to work with that distributor because of EDI and fulfillment and all the supply chain issues. So, you really got to understand, and I say this a lot, I'm like, inventors are not entrepreneurs, right? And that inventor really needs to stay in their space, and the entrepreneur needs to go out and really build it, but they got to make sure that there's enough cash to make sure that you don't build it, do all the work, and then all of a sudden you end up handing it off to a big business because, you've run out of cash. But yeah, I mean, I also started in Cohatch, we had a maker space. So we started something called Red Bristle, which was a hair salon in Worthington in our maker space. So, you had, there was a non or a for-profit, a nonprofit candle company, right? They were making candles, and then we had Portion, which was a food business, and then we had a Floor and Coffee, which I mean they're actually relatively successful making coffee, and like it was a full maker space, and we opened up something called Red Bristle, and it didn't do very well. So again, when I say failures, I mean, I learn from every failure. I think every entrepreneur has to know that, if you don't expect to get punched in the face, and, there's a group out there called the Everyday or the Entrepreneurs Anonymous. And I thought it was the greatest idea when I heard it because I'm like, oh my God, Entrepreneurs Anonymous, like this is great. Like, and then I'm thinking, I started to like look in the group and I was like, oh, this is for people who like are scarred from being an entrepreneur. And what you learn is that some people shouldn't be an entrepreneur, right? Like some people shouldn't be an inventor. Some people shouldn't ever do anything but have a 9 to 5 job. And that's okay, right? And that's where I think from a Cohatch perspective, you got to look at yourself and understand who you are, what you can do, and where you see yourself. And then, don't lie to yourself, but at the same time, if you want to take a stab at doing it, make sure you do it right and make sure I call it copycatting. Like, make sure that you see what all these other entrepreneurs are doing and learn from their mistakes because you can go to you can go and you can listen to an entrepreneur, but there's nothing better than seeing it every single day on the front lines. So like to give you an example, there's one of the stories I talk about on the Everyday Entrepreneur podcast is that, we had Chad Justin, who was literally the consummate college student who developed something called the Wear Pack, which was it basically was a pack that was clear and it was made so that you could go to football stadiums. And he was at Ohio State University and we gave away 50 scholarships because we have a partnership with Ohio State, and we were really trying to activate the space after COVID. And he comes in and like he literally had no rent, no plan. He had his car, he had all these plans, and we gave him a scholarship. He comes in, he worked it, right? Like he talked to everybody who wanted to talk to him. He did everything he could. Fast forward 2 years, he moved to Cleveland. We had given him a boost scholarship to go to Cleveland. He's working every day so hard, doing everything that he's doing. He meets a guy who's from Texas who happened to be up in Cleveland for work and was working out of the Cohatch. And he was like, "You work so hard." He's like, like, what's your business?" And he was like, "Oh, I do this wear pack." So long story short, he invested in his business. They now have, a fulfillment center. Chad's doing amazing things. And, again, whether or not that business does well or not, I mean, the reality is he's in his 20s still. And I mean, he's really been like he's a monster at what he does, right? So, the reality I look at is that, you see folks who, if you do it every day and you really hustle every day, you want to be around other people that will see it, notice it, and understand it, and you can learn from it.
Love, so often entrepreneurs are kind of an island in and of themselves and kind of trying to figure it out on their own. And you're creating many environments where they're around others who are successful, bouncing into each other, learning, making connections, and growing from there.
Well, yeah, and a lot of times, there's a lot of people say like, how do you work on more than one thing? But like, like I've been more than blessed, right? And again, you look at it like Will Schmidt and Matt Davis. Matt Davis is the managing partner or the head partner of Cohatch, right? I mean, Will Schmidt's the CEO of Fire Rover. Well, they both went to Miami. They're both Miami grads. So like this year, and again for the last 3 years, like the top 50 businesses, the Red Hawk businesses, right, have been Fire Rover and Cohatch. And like Cohatch actually won number one this year. And like, so there was a year that Fire Rover was ahead, and like, we all sit at the same table. And again, it's I learned so much from the day-to-day entrepreneur and like how to help myself as I'm trying to build out my my the work that I do for Fire Rover as a and again it's it's inspiring, and it's also, on a daily basis. I used to work in offices, big corporations, and everyone's talking about the same stuff, and like there's something to be said for that, but there's also something to be said for, throw yourself around, someone who's working on a nonprofit. I mean, we have a lady named Deb Papish who's been around for 10 years. She started with our Mesh Fitness. She's a Give Scholar that we've had for years. And she, like, when she got her first $50,000 donation for the Dublin Education Foundation, she comes in and she's like so excited. The same way when I close a deal with a big customer, I'm excited, and we can still share in that love and that happiness, right? Together doesn't mean to, like, it doesn't have to all be the same stuff. So that's really what what I believe. And again, this is why other companies, yeah, like there's other not or other like co-working companies who are like, hey, we're going to give 10 scholarships to nonprofits. Well, unless you're engaged with them, and again, like I'm not saying that Ryan Fogelman's engaged with them, but there's a Ryan Fogelman at every location, and there's, a Deb Papish at every location, and really that's how you kind of try to build it and make sure, that when you're teaching folks how to use the space, because they get up every morning and know that, they might not love every day of their life, but they would not give it up any day of their lives, because an overnight success takes a decade, right? I mean, minimum. Like, I joke with half these guys I see. I'm like, okay, you ringing the bell is like in 7 years, like, and it's been 8, 10 years, like in 7 years, in 7 years. And then I walk up to one guy and I'm like, you ringing the bell? He's like, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Like I just had this, and this happen in year 9. And all of a sudden he actually might hit it in 10, but it takes a decade. Like anyone who thinks they're going to do this. I mean, now again, when I say that, a lot of our nonprofits and for-profits, you have to make money within 90 days because we're uberly conservative, or I am uberly conservative. It's always calculated risk, right? Like, but if you look at a for-profit company, it's our job to take calculated risk. When you do a nonprofit startup, you have the same exact deal. Everything you're dealing with is the same exact problem. You can't pay yourself. But the issue is you're not allowed to take any risk because that board of directors is basically liable if something goes wrong. So a lot of those nonprofits, like they'll fail within the first, year, or someone just gives up on them because, it makes it difficult. So like that's where, like, if you look the true business every day, whether you're doing an association, a nonprofit, it's volunteer for you. I mean, it really, there's always that tie.
And look forward. Great growth story. All the folks you're involved with. If you look forward, what's the challenge in front of you for you and the team?
I mean, the challenge for Fire Rover is okay. Now we have FM certification, and again, I see it as a challenge and an opportunity, right? It's how do we, really drive into industrial businesses and really get out of the, hey, we're just waste and recycling. We're great at waste and recycling. I mean, we've had two catastrophic losses in 10 years, and when I say that we've only had two catastrophic losses in 10 years, I mean we mitigate your risk of a catastrophic loss by 99+%. I think with Cohatch, again, it's not always smooth sailing. We are like, so we have two separate businesses, just like anything else. And you might have one location that's doing well, one location that's not doing well. Just because you're opening locations doesn't mean that you're successful. Now, with that being said, both of my partners are uberly conservative. So, we make sure that we carry enough cash. We make sure that we're judicious and like smart in the way that we run businesses. And again, this is where I am not a CEO of a company. I had to come to that conclusion a long time ago where I'm really good at building businesses. I'm really good at driving eyeballs. I am not good at leading a team of people, right? Which is why, again, I can lead groups, and a lot of people that I work with, I can build great teams, but I'm not the guy who you want running a company. Now, I am the guy that you want if you have a great idea and you got to figure out what to do with it and strategize, and I call it tactical. But like, I learned that a long time ago. I always thought I'd be the CEO of a company when I was 18, 19 years old. And it's like sometimes you got to look in the mirror and say, okay, I'm not good for this, but I might be really good for this. And so, what are your skill sets and what are the things that you do that really make you different? And I think that's really the big thing that whenever I talk to anyone, I mean, my thing is Don't try to be someone you're not. Be exactly who you are, because I guarantee you, if you figure out what that is, you're going to do really well and you'll be happier, right? I mean, that's why else do we do this? To be happy.
So, Brian, as we get closer to our closing time here, what are some keys to success beyond what you've already shared that you would want to share with other newer entrepreneurs? You're doing a lot of this. So, in terms of our audience, you say, hey, a couple key things to consider.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing, and again, this is really the Cohatch side of it, right? Like my goal was always to be around my family. My goal was to be there. So like, I looked at, I wanted co-working that was convenient to where I was. So I was the guy who was, I mean, a lot of us were. I had a VW Passat. I had a really bad internet like hotspot. I was going to Starbucks. I was going to Barnes and Noble. I was going to all these places, and like I was still like I didn't miss one of my kids' games when I was in town, right? So, fortunately, my kids are 18 and 20 years old now, and I'm in a different kind of status of life. And my daughter's actually at Miami, studying marketing and entrepreneurship. My other daughter's a swimmer. So, like again, I have never given up my family. Now, if I'm on the road, I'm on the road. That does happen. But like the reality is when I'm home, I want to make sure that I'm working within my life and making sure that I'm able to not give up on the things that I find priorities. I always work out every day. I juice every day. I take care of myself and I get enough sleep. Because if you don't do that, like that's really the biggest thing. And this is another reason. Like the CEO of a company might have to work 150 hours. I don't have to work, right? I want to. So I do work a lot of hours, but to me, a lot of my hours that I'm working are building on LinkedIn. I mean, I'm actually I just started a company called it's actually with Keller Williams, but it's a real estate group, right? Residential real estate, and so it's called the Ignite Group Ohio, right? So I mean, there's the reason I'm doing that is because I want to be able to have a business that everybody else and show everyone within Cohatch how to build it. And now I have the ability to do that. And, in the next 10, 20 years, it's something that I'll probably do because I love real estate. I think it's really fun. I've had rentals, I've done other stuff. So, like, again, to me, is like what I would say to anybody else is make your life convenient. Make sure you can work, make sure you can give, make sure that and that you take care of yourself, right? Because work, meet, live. Those are the things that really, again, that's what we started with Cohatch, and that's literally still our mantra to this day, and it'll never change. Take care of yourself and take care of your family, and the rest of it, as long as you're relatively happy in life, if you're an entrepreneur, this is the way to do it.
So, as we wrap up, Brian, what's the best ways for folks to get connected with you, learn more?
For me, it's LinkedIn always, right? I mean, I've been on LinkedIn since 2006. I've trained people on LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn. I've built both Fire Rover and Cohatch on LinkedIn. I break every cardinal rule on LinkedIn because everyone says you should only have one brand, and my brand is like every brand, right? Which is fine with me. And again, I think most of my partners are okay because they understand that I mean, I have inhuman type of work. So, I mean, most people work 40 hours. I mean, honestly, I'm constantly working when I'm not with my family. So, I think at the end of the day, yes, if anyone's on LinkedIn, I have Instagram account. I have, so if you can go to, the Ohio or the Ignite Group Ohio on Instagram. You can go to my Everyday Entrepreneur podcast on Instagram. I also have on LinkedIn. I have the Everyday Entrepreneur newsletter that has 6,000 followers, and then my fire safety report. If you really care about innovation and fire safety, I have 12,000 followers. And I write articles every month. And again, I still write them. I don't have AI write these for me, and I'm going to have help with AI, so I'm learning a little bit of that, but the my next annual report for fire will be out at the end of January, February, with a little bit of help from AI with just updating old things, which hopefully will get it out, a month before I'd been able to in the past. So LinkedIn. Sorry, I talk a
I'm
lot.
making that in the show notes for folks. So, Ryan Fogelman, final question as we wrap up. What are you inspired by today?
Honestly, I am inspired by folks who are doing what they love doing. And again, there is nothing greater. Like if I look at 100 years from now, everybody like I hear a lot of doom and gloom, right? And like what I've come to, and I put a post out on LinkedIn every year that like we are living in the safest time in human history. There's less murder, there's less assaults, there's less less thievery, right? Like I mean the reality is we are in the safest time. So to me it's like if you an American and you've gotten that lottery ticket that Warren Buffett gave you, right? The reality is like take that lottery ticket and do something with it, right? Like try something new. If you have a job, try something at night. Like do what you want to do. And honestly, that makes me happy. So, if you're saying what do I love doing most, I'm always you'll find me on weekends at every farmer's market, whether it's Worthington Farmers Market, Dublin Farmers Market, Delaware's Farmers Market, Powell's Farmers Market, Westerville's Farmers Market, Springfield's. And again, they all happen to be around Cohatches too, which is fun. I have Margot, my dog, when my daughters or my wife, want to come with me, they come along, but I'm always there, and I enjoy the booth, right? Like I enjoy my brother and I had a spice company in Detroit, but like I enjoy like just the love of building a business from scratch. I just find it so fun.
And you don't hide it, and that's a wonderful thing. It's very apparent. I appreciate you sharing your story with us. You're inspiring countless other entrepreneurs. You get the numerous examples here, and amazing portfolio of businesses that you're running and continue to build and grow. So, Ryan Fogelman, thank you for joining us today on the Business
Oh,
Spotlight
thank you,
series.
Todd. I appreciate it. I mean, it's there's so many guys out there that talk about how they build businesses online, and at the end of the day, they're not building businesses. What they're building is talking about building businesses. So again, like don't listen to those guys. Listen to the guys who are doing it. And again, I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about like listen to the guys who've actually done it and watch them. And you don't have to watch and listen to Mark Cuban. Listen to the guy that's next to you who's doing it himself, because that's where you're going to learn.
Well,
But
thank
I
you.
appreciate it, Todd. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So and to our viewers, we're thrilled to have you join us today. I bet you're going to hit rewind a few times and catch some extra notes there. And again, a lot of the contact information will be in the show notes. And we encourage you to hit the like button. That helps us feed the algorithms and share the message. And also, as I mentioned before, if you haven't already, hit subscribe so you can receive future inspiring messages like you heard from Ryan Fogelman today. With that, hope you all have a terrific day. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Todd.